Hello, and welcome to the Mic Drop Sessions. My name is Brett Bovee, and I work for Westwater Research. And today I'll be talking about water rights, valuation, and markets, and related to how it is involved in the real estate industry. So I wanted to start with some basics on what a water right is and what a water right is not. So a water right is a right to use the state's public water resources under strict conditions. So a water right defines how, where, when, and why you can use the water. This is often regarded as a property right because a water right can be transferred separate from the land, much like other real estate. A water right is not a right to own a particular set of water molecules. It's more of a use right to a resource. And it's not a guaranteed water supply. So many water rights are not reliable or have variable reliability. And finally, a water right is not flexible and freely transferable. There's a robust set of laws and regulations that define how a water right may be used and how it might be transferred to another user. So some common types of water rights are listed here. These are types of water rights that are owned and transferred in Colorado, particularly on the Front Range. And I'll go into more detail on each of these on the next slide. So on this slide, what we see is those same water rights shown in a diagram. You see a river coming down through with some irrigated farms shown as green, a storage reservoir shown up here, and a municipal area over here. So starting on the left, you see direct flow water rights, which are basically drawing water rights directly from a water source like a river or a creek, and usually applied to farmland. The second type of water right is also a direct diversion from the river, but is what is regarded as shares in mutual ditch companies. So long ago when Colorado was first established, a lot of the original water rights were created for these mutual ditch share companies who dug the canals and developed the farmland. And shares in these companies are much like shares in any company. It provides a pro rata allocation of the company's water right holdings. The third type is units in regional water projects. And these would be projects like the Colorado Big Thompson project in northern Colorado, the Windy Gap project, or the Frying Pan, Arkansas project, where the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation or some other large entity created these projects as storage reservoirs usually, and then entities can own units in those projects. Again, it's a pro rata allocation of the overall water supply and storage holdings. The fourth and fifth type are groundwater rights, and you can divide groundwater rights into two types: those that are tributary to a river system or connect to a river system, and those that are not tributary or are disconnected from river systems. Disconnected from river systems would be things like the Denver Basin Aquifer under much of the Denver metro area, and when groundwater rights are connected to a river system, we often call those tributary groundwater rights. The final type of water right that you see owned and traded are municipal effluent rights. And when water rights are brought over the divide or are fully consumptive, you can actually maintain ownership of that water even after it goes through the wastewater treatment plant and is discharged back to the river. And transactions involve effluent from municipal systems. So those were some common types of water rights. On this slide, we see some common types of water transactions. The most common types of water transactions are permanent sales, single or multi-year leases, or take-or-pay contracts. And these are similar to transaction mechanisms used in real estate and in other ways as well. Some other types of water transactions which are not as common but are seen involve dry year option contracts, where an entity basically signs a long-term agreement and then exercises the option to use the water only in dry years. And then conserved water projects, where an agricultural entity is paid to conserve water, the consumptive portion of the water, and then it doesn't really change the agricultural operations much, but the water is freed up to be used by another entity, and they pay for that water use. So a common question and a critical question in any water right transaction is, how is a water right valued? And listed here are the common types of ways that water rights are valued. These four ways will be described in more detail in the following slides. So one thing I wanted to do before getting into these four methods was just to describe the unit of measurement that's often used when valuing water rights. So the standard unit is acre-feet of transferable consumptive use, and I'll describe what that means. So first, the acre-feet portion. An acre-foot is a volume of water that is an acre in land area with 1 foot deep of water. It's a volume. And it's basically a football field filled 1 foot deep of water and is the same as 325,851 gallons of water. So it's a volume. Transferable consumptive use means the portion of the water right or use that is consumed and is never returned to the system. So Colorado has a well-established set of water laws that only allow you to transfer that portion of the water use that you never returned back to the system. And so this standardized unit of transferable consumptive use, reported often in acre-feet, is similar to sort of using square foot costs in commercial or residential real estate. It standardizes how a property is valued. So the first method I want to talk about is comparable sales. And this is similar to how the real estate industry often values property. And you look at sales which are both in the same geographic area and are comparable. So in the water rights industry, or valuing water rights, the challenge becomes finding a sufficient number of sales or leases in the geographic area you're interested in, and understanding if those sales and leases are actually comparable. So this is illustrated in this map right here. And what you see is a geographic area in the South Denver area. And each of these represents basically a different type of water right. So some are storage water rights, and some are groundwater rights, and some are surface water rights. And they each carry very different values per acre foot of water. The second method I wanted to talk about was the potential income method. And this is basically the seller's perspective on water rights. Since most water rights are transferred from agriculture to a municipal or industrial buyer, the seller or the agricultural entity might view value as the amount of net revenue they get from irrigating their land and growing a crop. And so to calculate this, you basically have to calculate the net revenue, or gross revenue minus operating costs, that you would see from the agricultural operation. And that net revenue or profit influences the value of that water right. The third method I wanted to talk about was avoided cost. And again, since most water rights are transacted from agricultural use to a municipal or industrial use, the avoided cost approach often influences or provides perspective for the buyer on what the value of a water right is worth. And so in this example, we have 3 options for acquiring water for this municipality. On the left, we see an agricultural water right, maybe from a ditch share. In the middle, we have a project water right, a storage reservoir. And on the right, we have groundwater wells. And these 3 options might carry different costs. And if we're valuing the first option, the agricultural water right, we might look at what it would cost to bring water from these other 2 sources. And you have the storage. In this example, we have the storage reservoir as $3 million of cost, and the groundwater wells as $3.5 million of cost. So from the buyer's perspective, if they're all providing the same type of water supply, and again, that's a really critical component of applying this avoided cost approach, that they each provide a similar or the same type of water supply, if option 2 is going to cost $3 million, it basically provides a ceiling on what the agricultural water right might be worth to that buyer, $3 million. The fourth type of method I wanted to describe was the land price difference approach. And in this, it's usually applied in rural areas where there aren't a lot of transactions of water rights. And you can look at the value of the land, agricultural land, between irrigated farming and dryland farming. And the value difference between those 2 types of irrigated agriculture, or 2 types of agriculture, does provide an indication of value of what the water is worth on the irrigated piece. It can be difficult to apply sometimes where you don't have a sufficient data set of irrigated and non-irrigated properties. So because comparable sales or a market value is the most common way to value a water right, particularly on the Colorado Front Range, I did want to show a couple of slides with some data charts on what the market looks like for water rights on the Colorado Front Range. So on the left here, we see two pie charts. The far left is the sellers, and the near one is the buyers. And the light colored blue is agriculture, and the dark colored blue in the buyer is municipal buyers. And so what you see is most water right transactions are moving from an agricultural seller to a municipal buyer on the Front Range. And the chart on the right here shows volumes traded over the last 10 years. And so what you see is a low of about 2,000 acre feet per year of water right sales and a high of about 12,000 acre feet a year, and variations in between. What you see in the volume traded is also sort of how water rights are really parallel to the real estate industry. And as the real estate industry had a downturn coming out of the 2009, 2010, you saw a downturn in water rights trading activity, and then you've seen an appreciation or an increase since the real estate downturn has recovered. This set of charts shows more data on Colorado Front Range, and I should say that these charts are focused in the South Platte Basin, South Platte River Basin, which extends from Denver north to Greeley. And this is an area of the Front Range that sees a lot of water right trading activity. So on the chart on the left, what you see is pricing data, and this is averaged across all water rights of all types in that South Platte River Basin area. And so you see a huge appreciation in price recently, and that's heavily influenced by the price appreciation in units of the Colorado Big Thompson project, which is a storage project that provides water through Horsetooth Reservoir and Carter Lake. That price appreciation and the number of trades we've seen in the CBT market have been increasing steadily over the past few years. And these two market meters show this. This market meter on the left shows CBT units, and you see a price appreciation, an increase in number of trades, and an increase in the volume traded from 2014 to 2015. And this meter on the right here shows ditch shares, mutual ditch shares, and that's the other major type of water right that's traded on the Front Range. And what you see again is an increase in price over the past year, a fairly even number of trades, but an increase in volume traded as well. And so the Colorado Front Range water market is very healthy, and I think it will continue to be so in the coming years as municipal growth continues on the Front Range. So hopefully you've enjoyed this session on water right valuation and pricing and markets on the Front Range. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and thanks.